Hello, everyone. I'll be sharing with you the upcoming Sunday School lesson for February the 27th. It comes from Job chapter 42, which is the last chapter of the book of Job. It's actually part two from last week's lesson, and the topic is called Serving a Just God. In the Front Porch magazine is an article about 11-year-old Caden Ballard. When he was 3, his mother died. Just a few years ago, his father died in a vehicle accident. When he was in school in the Elizabeth City area, one day a bully slammed his head into the floor. That is not a great life, having all these bad things happen to someone so young. But Caden discovered that he was blessed rather than cursed. His grandparents, Otis and Gloria Ballard, are now raising him in the Gates community. Caden is a 5th grader at Buckland Elementary. Recently, he had his first book, Victories of a Puny Kid, published. How did this happen? It happened because young Caden used the gifts God gave him: an imagination, the desire to write stories, personal experiences, artistic ability, and an uncle who owns a publishing company. Based upon the article, Caden is bright and happy with his life and optimistic about his future, even though some terrible things have happened to him. As a side note, he originally was going to use the title Struggles of a Puny Kid, but chose the better and brighter title of Victories. The world is full of people who are overcomers: men, women, boys, and girls of all races and tribes who overcome tragedy and physical limitations. They don't give up when life is difficult. As I say many times, difficulties can make you bitter or better. You get to choose. I personally choose better. On page 94 of the Learner's Guide is the story of Sherry, who was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She and her husband questioned why they deserved such bad news. They asked God, "Why are you causing us to go through this?" They never received an answer to that question, which was, in effect, casting blame on God. But they asked a more relevant question: God, how do you want us to respond? In other words, how do you want for us to live? How do you want us to handle adversity? Although Sherry would die, her positive witness was a source of encouragement to many others, including her friend Audrey, who also had cancer. Audrey, quote, consistently reminded herself, as well as those treating her and others sharing the chemo rooms with her, that God is with us even in the difficult and painful times and when we don't understand Him or His ways. I expect that many of you have stories that you could tell that are similar. In your darkest moments, you found extra strength and grace that you needed. And you realized, as Corrie ten Boom often said, there is no pit so deep that God is not deeper still. Chapter 42 is the very last chapter of this book of Job. In chapter 40, God answered Job with many challenges, such as chapter 40, verse 8. Would you really challenge my justice? And then God speaks to his authority over the animal kingdom, the whole earth, the biggest and most fearsome of beasts, which are called Behemoth and Leviathan. God says in chapter 41, verse 11, the last part, everything in heaven, everything under heaven belongs to me. Think about that. Everything under heaven belongs to God. Now in chapter 42, Job replies to God in great humility. And that's important, how Job replies to God in great humility. God loved Job. God called Job a man of perfect integrity. He uses that phrase several times. A man of perfect integrity. There was no one on earth more righteous than Job. Yet Job was still an imperfect man. Although a man of great faith, his faith had wavered. It had been difficult listening day after day to his friends who continued to blame him for his circumstance. Somehow this was Job's fault, and truthfully, if it were any other man, his friends might well have been right. Your lesson on pages 90 to 91, says, and I quote, Job's response revealed that he finally understood that God is who he is, while man is what he is. God is eternal. He is the creator. In some ways, he is unknowable. Job humbly realized that he needed to repent in, quote, dust and ashes. Verse 6. We call God Lord, capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D, because God is sovereign. He is omnipotent, all-powerful. He is omniscient, all-knowing. He is omnipresent, all-being, all-present. God is not limited to time and space. God has no limits, yet somehow we limit our understanding of him based upon what we can see, touch, and hear. Let me sum up the end of Job's life with these 4 observations. First, Job was elevated over his friends. Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar sacrificed animals to receive God's forgiveness and Job's forgiveness. They needed Job's prayers over them. The other prophet friend, Elihu, was not included in God's rebuke. The second observation is that God restores Job double. The number of his sheep and goats, camels, oxen, and female donkeys doubled. He would be blessed with 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. And not only were his daughters doubly beautiful, but they would share in the inheritance, something that usually did not happen to women, to daughters. One thought is that God doubled Job's children, and that the first 10, because of their innocence, had living souls, meaning preserved souls or eternal souls, and that Job had been 70 years old when the great testing began, since Job would live 140 more years, double, equaling 210 total. The third observation is that Satan is the big loser. Satan had been proven wrong about Job. Job had remained blameless and had refused to curse God, although that is exactly what his wife had wanted him to do. And then fourth, the last observation, is that Job is the perfect example for all of us. No matter what we have been through, no matter what we still might go through, Job is an example and encouragement for us to keep our faith and to believe that God will provide and his love and promises will never fail. God bless you. I pray that you will have a wonderful week. Serve him.